There's got to be a way to hack success. Working 40 hours a week for 40 years to retire on 40% of my income, is this it? That is the point where people can start going, maybe there's something more.
Jane Slack-Smith, author, mortgage broker, and property expert with decades of experience in the industry, has helped so many people achieve financial success in property. This episode, she helps us unpack the things that could be holding us back from achieving what we're really capable of in property investing.
I was pulling drowning people out of the river, but I realised if I went upstream, I could stop them jumping in.
We're potentially going to use me as a bit of a guinea pig.
So how did that make you feel?
At the time, emasculated. Why am I still in my own way?
You get to look at this and you get to say, this is not how I planned this to be.
That was when I started noticing it within myself. I'd like to say I was all enlightened, but I didn't. This is happening. I don't care what anyone says. That level of absolute certainty, I want to unplug that from that and plug that into creating 10 mil.
Why are some people getting it? And why are some people not? What is getting in the way? I'll give them more tactics.
This was potentially one of the most uncomfortable and vulnerable episodes I have ever created. With that said, it's possibly one of the most helpful when implemented correctly. I hope you take away a lot from what I'm about to share and what Jane's about to open up. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast, and you're listening to my chat with Jane Slack-Smith. Jane Slack-Smith, how you going?
I'm good, thank you.
You've been in the real estate game for a long time now. You've got that many runs on the board. You've educated so many people in this space, both through renovating, picking areas. There is a huge amount. Mortgage broking, I think you won Mortgage Broker of the Year, I think several times. If I don't know if I've got that right. There is a lot of strings in your bow. One of the ones that I really wanted to pluck on today, though, was mindset, because you and I have spoken quite a bit on the phone, and something that you said I found fascinating, that you would get people to a stage where everything was ready. They were bang on. They had the suburb, they had the finance approval, they had the strategy, they had it all, and then they stalled. And I think that this is something that is probably a more common problem than maybe some people would like to admit. You've obviously seen this quite a bit. I'm starting to hear this more when I talk to people. And I wanted, I guess, to start pulling this apart. We're potentially going to use me as a bit of a guinea pig for this as well, because I'm human like anyone else. I've got things that are blocking me from getting where I want to go. So I'm quite interested in this. But can we start off with a little bit of like how this kind of came about and how you figured it out?
I had educated tens of thousands of people on property investing.
Huge amounts.
And had, people buy courses, and it hurt my heart when I could see someone buy like a $3,000 course and not even open it, or go through the course and still buy a property that was a dud. I'm like, that you didn't follow the stepping stones. Like, what went wrong? So I thought, look, if I could mentor a small group of people, I can actually course correct them. And so I took on, 2017, 2018, I was taking on small groups of people and, setting them up. We'll go through the 16,500 suburbs, down to the 3 suburbs, down to the streets in the suburbs that the renters lived using.
Like hyper detail.
Yeah, we're like, and when this property comes up, we're all in.
Yep.
And I remember this client, and we got down and our property came up, and I was like, this is great. You can go and put in an offer. I've done the review, get a buyer's agent, however you're going to buy it, like, go. She's like, oh, it doesn't feel right. I was like, you've kind of spent a lot of money on me being here to guide you, and like, this is right. What's going on? She said, no, it doesn't feel right. I'm like, is there anything else in your life that doesn't feel right? And she said, oh gosh, I've been waiting for this dream job and I've just been offered it, but I don't know if it's the right time. I was like, okay, maybe how you do anything is how you do everything.
Okay.
And I'd created this incredible property portfolio that gave me the freedom of choice to do what I want, with whom I want, when I want, and that choice was to help other people do this. And I was like, why is this not the case? And there was this quote by Bishop Desmond Tutu that said,
Bishop Desmond Tutu. Okay.
I was pulling drowning people out of the river, but I realised if I went upstream, I could stop them jumping in.
Well, that's good. I like that. I was pulling drowning people out of the river, but I realized if I went upstream, I could stop them jumping in. I need to search this guy. Okay.
So what that meant to me was, gosh, I thought if I could give people the confidence and competence to buy properties, they could then create financial security, they could create the life of their dreams, educate their kids better, be role models for their children, intergenerational change. But People were getting in front of themselves and blocking themselves. So I went on this course of understanding and hacking success. I was like, okay, what is holding people back? If this woman doesn't think that this is right, what does success mean to her? So I said, well, what's success mean to you? And she's like, lots of money. I was like, no, like close your eyes, really step into this. In the future, you've made millions of dollars. What's happening?
So you're digging deep and getting real personal.
And she said, oh God, I'm like this old, spinster dying alone in a mansion. I was like, no wonder your subconscious is not letting you create success and getting in the way of it, because success for you means being by yourself and lonely.
Success sounds horrible for her.
Yeah. And so I was like, God, what are the stories that people are telling themselves? Like maybe there's something in this. How do we create these stories that then are the navigating kind of true north of how we're always orientating? And so I went down basically this pathway of understanding how people operate. And, I talk about the woo-woo, which I was kind of like very resistant to. So basically we've got our unconscious.
Unconscious, yeah.
So that's like, how we breathe and eat and orientate. We've got our self-conscious.
Self-conscious, yeah.
So, we kind of like, we're working with our self-conscious, we're working with our unconscious, which is the stories, the beliefs, the history, the experiences, everything that we've had in the past that basically dictates how we orientate. And then we have the superconscious, which is, hey, our goals and aspirations and our dreams and our higher purpose and how we want to orientate in the world.
And so that's something that you tap into by choice.
So these are the three ways that we orientate.
Okay.
We breathe by basically that self-conscious. Our unconscious is running these stories. Our superconscious is kind of what we want. And they all feed our subconscious. And our subconscious is there going, where's the power? Where's the most power? Where's the most information? Now, obviously, the self-conscious is just like we're orientating and not getting run over. Basically, our unconscious is this operating system. And the operating system fascinated me. It's like, well, where do we get this operating system from? And the reality is most people are working on MS-DOS. They're not working on Windows 13, but they have the capacity to be working on Windows 200, right? And I'm like, how do I get people to Windows 200? And so I was dragging people from the river who were drowning going, I want property to solve all my problems. They'd have property and wealth and then they've still got problems. I'm like, what's up here that I can help them with?
Just very quickly for any of our 20-year-old viewers, MS-DOS is an old operating system on computers that when they used to be very large and not fit in your pocket. But okay, so basically
Back in the day.
People are telling themselves outdated stories.
Outdated stories. So I thought, okay, there's got to be some science. I mean, I'm an engineer, right? I do research. I do Excel spreadsheets for fun. So I'm like, okay, let me look into what's the science behind this. And I found Dr. Joe Dispenza. And, he does MRIs on people. He's a doctor. And he's like, there's 400 billion pieces of information every second that's coming into your brain. But we only have capacity for 2,000 bits. Now, depending on which neuroscience you talk to, it's essentially, the numbers change, but it's essentially 0.001% of the information that is in our, perception at any time.
The tiniest amount.
So I was like, okay, so how do we take that information? And then I found out that basically any tension, any information we get, our amygdala basically sets off and it goes, okay, is this a threat to me? And 3 seconds later, our prefrontal cortex starts activating and it goes, okay, the brain is an energy conservation machine. How is the quickest way that I can take the information that I'm getting, process it, and move on? And we do that by our past experiences, and we do that by our beliefs or the conditions that we've set ourselves. And I was like, that's interesting. So if we are very quickly going to this story box of information, and the story boxes are all of the things in the past, and maybe we haven't got what we wanted in the past, are we just on this pattern of repeating, dating the wrong person, trusting the wrong buyer's agent, trusting the wrong financial, wrong job, across everything? And so I got very interested in this. And so
when was this roughly that you really started digging into this?
2020.
2020.
So
Okay.
2018, I was like, there's got to be a way to hack success. So I was doing like neuromarketing courses through Copenhagen Business School. I was at Mind Valley University in Estonia going, okay, these people, maybe they're onto it. You know, studying Eastern philosophies, going, the Sufis had this theory and then the Buddhists. And I was like, there's something here. I'm like, I need science to bring it together. So the woo I'm still uncomfortable about, but the wow of the science, I'm like, oh, this is good. And then I started working with a number of neuroscientists, and what fascinated me is that babies are born with twice the number of neuroconnections as we have. But over a period of 7 years, they prune and tune. And so they're like, what information do I need? What information do I not need? And as a child, and you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need our basic needs. We need to be
food, shelter, water,
security. And so all we're looking at, and then we want belonging and love. So as little children, we're like, so what are our guardians or the most influential people in our life telling us? You know, if you're the quiet little good girl, then you get the rewards. If you're, you know, good at sport or good at school, you get the rewards. Like, how do I fit in? How do I belong? By the time we're 7, 76% of our neuroconnections are made. Our stories have been created of what we need to do to fit in and belong. By the time we're 10, it's 90%. So these children with these childlike minds are actually making stories up that we are still living when we're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60.
Can you help me understand a little bit of more the science behind that? Because it feels like this is kind of going down the path of, like, from what I understand, most psychologists kind of subscribe to either the Freudian theory or the Skinner type theory. And it's like Freud was very much like dreams, like didn't he analyze his own dream once about popping balloons and the Oedipus complex came out of it? Whereas like Skinner was more like, no, that's nothing. Like this is, and if there's a psychologist watching right now and I've completely butchered that, please correct me in the comments. But is it still something that's very much open to interpretation psychologically? Or are you saying, like, you're talking with neuroscientists about this that have gone like, no, this is really like a part of the brain?
Absolutely. And it's done through MRIs. So basically they're doing a scan of the brain and they're saying, you know, when we're, for instance, so there might be people here listening going, this woo-woo stuff, like I'm out, mindset, like, come on, Todd, bring me on a property expert here. I really want to know how to make money. What are we talking about? You know, and this cognitive dissonance, you know, this is a human thing that we have. If there's something that tests our beliefs or something that really challenges us, it actually lights up the area in our brain which is a physical threat. It could be a saber-toothed tiger. It's like, wait a second, this is going against my belief. My belief is the woo-woo or the mental capacity. Like, I just want to understand, you know, buy a good property, let it double in value every 10 years, develop it at some stage. Hopefully it's on a battle axe. I can throw something on the back, renovate it, make some money, yada, yada. And the reality is that we are actually victims of our past. And we have these stories playing. So, for instance, I'm thinking of, I had this course, Renovate Yourself, Renovate Your Wealth, obviously as the Reno Queen. Just using a little bit of that on the mindset.
Yeah.
And I had a participant and I was talking to her and I was saying, look, what are the stories that you had as a child? Like, what were your parents saying about rich people? What were your parents saying about saving? What was the experiencing that you had around money as a child? What were the songs that you're listening to, you know? And, you know, if you think about that, then where are you now and how did they affect you? And this girl, she was just like, oh my gosh, you know, I came from nothing. And I made all this money. I bought this beautiful home and went into a deep depression and I couldn't work out why. And she said, now I know why. As children, every Sunday we'd get in the car and we'd drive through these rich, you know, property estates and Dad would say, they've done something evil to get money. Only bad people are rich. Bad people are rich. Bad people are rich. Bad people are rich.
And all of a sudden she's got some wealth.
And she's got money. And she's like, oh my God, I'm a bad person. It's a story that she had as a child.
So I want to understand, because you're right. We've probably lost a big part of the audience that have gone, nah, just come on, let's talk yield, let's talk GRV, let's talk all this stuff. I feel like this is so important because, like you've just illustrated, you can go down all of these different, whether you're being educated, whether you're using a buyer's agent, it doesn't actually matter because it's going to get to a point where you're going to need to pull the trigger. And unless you're in the mindset to pull the trigger, all the rest of it's kind of useless because it can't get actioned. If someone's listening now and they're like, I don't want to, but I'm kind of relating to this, what are some things that they can sort of understand more to find out like what's actually blocking? What's that story? Like, how do you start digging into that?
Yeah, look, it's a great question because it's something that I was like, what's the signpost that I'm actually in something from the past? Like, my beliefs of being, I don't know, unworthy, not enough, don't have power, don't have capacity, the world's unsafe. How do I know that I'm in it before I get in it and make the wrong decision again? And what I found, incredible is our emotions are actually just chemical reactions. And so, for instance, if you think about when you're really excited, the butterflies you have in your stomach, right? You put it into context of where you are. You're like, I'm about to go, and see someone I'm in love with. Like I'm about to propose. I've got this real excitement about it. Now, it's exact same feeling about with the butterflies in your stomach when you're jumping onto a roller coaster and you're terrified. But the context of being in the roller coaster actually makes a feeling of being scared. Our emotions are chemical reactions, and it's the stories and the context that we're in that actually make them the feelings. So our feelings are actually one of the things that are the signposts that go, okay, when a feeling of something comes up, the feeling is actually just going to this memory box that we have and going, when have I felt this before? So the dog barks, oh my God, I'm so scared because I got bitten as a child. Dog barks, oh my gosh, I love dogs, I can't wait to pat it. So you're going to a memory box. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. Our feelings are actually going to this past experience. So what are my thoughts? Someone cut me off in traffic. Oh my God, what a dickhead, da-da-da-da-da. Whereas he could be going to the hospital because his wife's having a baby, right? I've made a story up. And so I'm making these stories up. So your thoughts and feelings are actually an access point to go, I've actually got a belief coming up here. I've got something that's happening and I may not like the outcome, but in actual fact, because it's familiar and it's comfortable, you go to that because the energy saving device that we have, which is the brain, goes, let me quickly come up with an answer.
You know, the thing that really makes me personally believe in this, and I don't even know if believe is the word when so much of it is rooted in scientific evidence, but let's run with it, is that when I think I was about 30 years old, I started training for doing some triathlons and I'd done some pretty big fitness stuff in the past before that. And I remember it was, we did a sprint triathlon, me and an old friend who was also named Todd. And it was like hardly anything in the water. And then it was like 20 Ks on the bike, running 5 Ks, something like pretty small for the fitness level that I was at. Should have taken 5 minutes in the pool. It took me 40. And I'd never been a strong swimmer and I couldn't work it out why. And like Todd was sitting on the sidelines politely waiting for me, like going, can we get on these bikes? I remember calling my mum after that and just generally kind of going blah, 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 having a bit of a whinge. And she's like, oh yeah, that's probably because you drowned when you were 2.
Right.
I was like, what? I'm 30 and you're just telling me this? And she's like, oh, well, you didn't like die or anything. It wasn't that. And she starts instantly kind of like pulling it back to like, oh, it wasn't that bad. But it turns out I was dancing around this pool as a little 2-year-old wearing this big sombrero, this Mexican hat. And then the adults then turn around later and this Mexican hat's just floating in the pool with me attached to it. I have no recollection of this. But when I put my face in the water, something back here remembers that very clearly. I feel ridiculously uncomfortable. And I've always found I don't know if it's the irony, just the silliness in it is like I feel comfortable jumping out of a plane. I thoroughly enjoy skydiving. I enjoy flying it. So much more dangerous than swimming laps in a pool where I can touch the bottom. But my brain doesn't say that. And this is what makes me come back to this to go,
there's a story.
There's a story, exactly. And I don't think that, I'm certainly not the only one with this. There must be other stories, again, that I'm telling myself, that other people that are telling themselves, I should be able to swim perfectly. I haven't gotten over that. And unless I do put the effort in to get over that, I'm still going to take 40 minutes to swim what should take 5 minutes.
Exactly. So I think a lot of people are sitting there going, property is going to save me from drowning in the situation I'm in, where in actual fact there could be something more behind it. And our thoughts and feelings are the indicators that there's something more there.
How do you know where to dig though?
It's a process. So I've been learning more and more intuitively to listen to people and understand the what's behind what they're saying. So, for instance, I can take people through like a 15-minute conflict deconstruction process. So a conflict they have at the moment, with someone that feels there's a heightened experience around it, and ask them about, what are the feelings you have around this? What are the thoughts that come up? What does that mean about you? What's that mean about others? What's it mean about the world? And from that, what drops out is the underlying belief. So it doesn't solve the conflict, but we use the conflict, which is a heightened sense of emotion, that allows us to pull out, well, what's that belief? And that belief might be, unless I am good and seen worthy, I don't get accepted. I don't feel like I belong. And so then it's an indication that allows us to look at and go, okay, so when you're feeling these feelings or you're having these thoughts, then maybe this is what's coming up for you. And this is not the truth. This is just a story from the past that's coming up. You now get to make the choice to say, actually, you know what? I do want to invest in property. I do feel that this person giving me the advice or the research isn't quite right. I need to do more. And in the past, I've deferred to experts because they know more than me. In actual fact, maybe I need to put some more thought or effort into this or take some self-responsibility around this. So, we have these stories of I don't have enough, I need to have more to be safe. And that comes from usually a story that we've created by the time we're 7.
One of the other things that I find interesting about this is that we can have a solid belief in one area of our lives and then a shaky belief in another area. They should translate over, but they don't. And belief is, I think, the cornerstone of all of this from my own personal experience. And I remember having a coach years ago, and this was basically the challenge that I set for her, saying, I don't understand how I can do these huge physical things that professionals tell me I can't, then I do them. And at the time, I was trying to double my GCI. This was when I was an agent. GCI is gross commission income. And basically, I was looking at it, and I was trying for a few years, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Why can't I do it? And we basically started going, pulling back all of the layers, and it did come down to self-belief. It came back to this little belief that I had that I wasn't deserving the amount of money I was shooting for. I had this blocker of, no, that's not actually for you. That's for other people. And again, we started pulling all this apart. And the thing, this is what I feel like I want to say, I'm disappointed in myself right now because I feel like I've even experiencing that now.
Yeah.
Like Bianca and I will build the portfolio at around 5 mil now. The goal is to send it to grow it to 10. Then 10 mil, 50-50 LVR with a 7% average yield. We've got a bit of high yielding stuff in there. So on a 6% P&I produces a passive income of 200K. We've gone through these exercises you've talked about, and that's just solid good life. That's not driving Lamborghinis, but that's where we're a happy
Hiring
campus.
a Lamborghini if you need to.
Well, yeah, if that's what we want to do. What I'm interested to do with you, Jane, and yeah, depending on how this goes, I don't know if this will be cut or if this will be kept in, but I guess kind of unpacking a bit of why am I still in my own way? Why is it after building already to 5 mil, which I'm quite proud of what we've done, 10 mil shouldn't feel impossible, but for some reason that voice is still there going, nah, you can't. And I need to.
Not for you.
Yeah, I need to get past that.
Yeah.
Can we use this
Let's
as
do
a,
it.
yeah, what do
Let's
we
do
do?
it. Okay, and here's another thing. Like most people probably heard of the book The Secret.
Yep.
And the reason why The Secret didn't really work for most people is that
Everyone knew about it?
Well,
Wasn't a secret?
Yeah, it wasn't a secret anymore. Everyone's sitting there with, written on their mirror in lipstick, I want to be rich.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think back to what's the subconscious hearing, there's this unconscious belief that has the power that's saying, well, you're not rich. Like, why am I saying I want to be rich? Because I'm not rich. I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy of it. I'm not enough for it. I don't have capacity. I don't have the power. Whatever that is, there's a belief there. So it's actually a negative vision. I want to be rich. So when I always thought about what I wanted to create, I wanted to have the freedom to do what I want, with whom I want, when I want. It wasn't around a passive income of $200,000.
Okay.
So where, just out of interest, where you may have been with your goals with your coach for your physical activity is you wanted to be You had a positive vision of what you want to create. You're standing up there with the winning medal, you've done your PB, whatever it is. Whereas when you're at the financial goal, which was I want to have this as my income, in actual fact, all you're doing is going, this is a step too far. This is a hurdle I can't have. So you're actually got a negative vision, even though you're saying I want to be rich, I want to have this income. All your subconscious is hearing is, well, why are they saying that? Oh, because they don't have it and they don't think they're capable of it. Whereas here, you're sitting here and you're going, I have the capacity to do this and this is the goal that I want and I want to be standing there as number one with that medal. And that's what your focus is. You're focusing on the end result. Here you're focusing on your limiting beliefs.
What is it that distinguishes that then? Because I remember very distinctly, it's actually the only time I've ever yelled at my dad when I was walking to Melbourne. This was before the walk when I was planning it. And I remember he kept calling me, trying to talk me out of it. And it actually came from a place of he was fearful I was going to get hit by a truck and get hurt.
Yeah.
And I'm like 13 weeks off of being a father now. So I'm sure I will be able to empathize that in a totally different way very soon.
Yep.
But at the time, I remember yelling at him and basically telling him, unless you can be supportive,
you're out.
Yeah, leave, go. And I was just so fixated on this is happening. I don't care what anyone says. That level of absolute certainty, belief, plugging that in, I feel like that's something that you can dig into. And I want to unplug that from that and plug that into creating 10 mil.
Yeah. And your focus creates your reality. My mother, before I went to sleep every night, used to come in, Dad and Mum come and kiss us goodnight, and she'd say, you're Jane Slacksmith, you can do anything but fly, and with God's help you can fly.
Love it.
I had a belief that was possible. And I have taken that through everything. I am currently reading a fantastic book by a neuroscientist. So I thought, well, why don't I call him up and see if he'd come on to my podcast? And so we're in conversations. And it's most people go, who am I to talk to a famous author? And I'm like, well, why not? All he can say is no. It means nothing about me. And what's interesting when you get to a point you're very successful in your property portfolio, and I've been there. No one rings the bell at $1 million and says you're rich.
Yeah.
Often you look back and went, oh shivers, it was sometime last year. But that was your goal. And what happens is your friends and your family, often when you're in property, you stop talking about property because you're they're judging, or they're going all you do is talk about property. And I know when I was telling my parents about, we'd bought our 6th, 7th property, and my dad said, you better be careful, girl. One day you'll owe $1 million. And I thought, oh my God, if only he knew I owed $3 million. And they're just trying to keep us safe. They're trying to keep us in the Shire. Lord of the Rings, stay here, little hobbit, do not go out of the Shire. They're trying to keep us safe. They're actually doing it for our good because they worry about us, but it's more about their beliefs and limitations, and what they're saying is God, I could never walk to Melbourne. There are so many threats and worries out there. And you're I see myself in Melbourne. Your dad's I see a truck. It's where their focus is. And you can bet trucks are going to turn up.
And they did.
Yeah.
Hot tip, walk on the opposite side of the road for anyone doing that. But anyway.
Weren't you taught that when you were 5?
Yeah, or just walk to oncoming traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
I did get told off by a cop once, but that's a whole other story. Anyway.
So, hey, if you're up for it, I'll take you through the exercise.
Let's do it. Do I need to lay down on a chair?
No, this is so painless.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So what I want you to do is think of a conflict that's recent, usually involving someone else, that is something that you've got a bit of a charge around.
And this is something property related?
Not any conflict. It'll just pull out the belief. The belief's kind of like the golden snitch. We're just we're trying to find it. So any conflict, something you've got to charge around.
All right. So as far as conflict's concerned, I don't know if it's a conflict with it's not a conflict with the person, but Bianca and I had a very tricky journey trying to fall pregnant 2023. That was a very, very difficult year. So
okay.
I don't know, does this work?
Let's see. It's all an experiment.
Okay.
No attachment. We'll just we'll see where it leads us. So think about the charge. So obviously you've got a bit of a charge around this. There's a circumstance around the difficulty in falling pregnant. And what at that time, what did you think about that? What were your thoughts? What were coming to you?
When it very first happened, it was this happens to other people.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the first thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, no, wait a second, this is happening to you. And
so it's shock.
yeah,
Surprise.
shock. Yep. And the thought of never having kids.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to preface this with this is a personal choice, but for me personally, felt empty.
Mm-hmm.
It just,
yep.
Yeah.
So you've had this shock, but the thoughts were, this happens to others, this shouldn't be happening to me, like life without children is an empty life, like what's it all for?
Pretty much. Like I just assumed I'd be able to have kids.
So how did that make you feel?
At the time, I've done a bit of reflecting on this already. At the time, I like angry when I couldn't work it out, and I think it was demasculated is probably the word.
Okay. So to find out that, you have a part in the problem of not being able to have children, you felt that your masculinity had been affected.
Very much in question.
Okay. So the power around understanding your feelings is to try to verbalize them to the nth degree. So angry is one word, but if you're going to go deeper on that, give me some insights into other words that are the feelings that really were you're struggling with at that time.
Angry, shortchanged, disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Sad was definitely a part of it. Empty, lonely, like all of the
gutted.
Yeah,
like
gutted is a good
sad,
one.
It's not sad. It's like really, like I'm feeling like it was a really dark.
And Bianca changed as a person.
Right.
We were fortunate that we very much stayed close, but I could see her becoming just more distant within herself, if that makes sense, which made me again feel more like I was failing her as a partner, because there was a bit of problem on both of our side, but the reality of it is more of the problem was on my side. So it's like I'm letting this woman down.
You felt responsible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, very much.
And guilty.
That's probably a good one. Guilty, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were, this happens to other people, this shouldn't be happening to me, life going forward is going to be empty, and, I'm feeling guilty, gutted, demasculated, angry, sad, disappointed, all of these things. What did that say about you? If I'm going to define you in that moment, how do you define yourself in that moment?
Not a real man.
Yep, there you go. All right. So here you are, not a real man, and how would you define others? If you're not a real man, you've lost that masculinity, how are others? So in reference to that, it's like you're isolated, separate from everyone else. You're sitting in the corner because you're not a real man. How would you define how others would feel?
Well, if I'm talking to a man, a real man, they're complete.
Complete.
Yeah.
So others are complete where you're kind of incomplete. You're a vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah, missing vessel. How does the world interact with you? So, if we're going to say you're incomplete, you're not a real man, all the other men in the world are complete, how does the world judge you? How does it orientate you? When I say this, it's like, you're worthless, you're worth nothing, you may as well be dead. Like, life is not worth living. Like, what am I here for? Like, your definition of the world is what?
Oh, and I don't like saying this out loud. Unfair.
Mm-hmm. So the world's unfair, and it punishes those that aren't complete.
Yeah.
Ignores, punishes, leaves behind.
I can see why people don't do this, Jane. This is uncomfortable. Okay, so I feel like it's such a loser mindset, but yes, that's what it felt like. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's okay to be emotional about this, because what you're doing is you're identifying the fact that this is how you were at that time. So how did you act? You were feeling not like a real man, and the others, they had it all together, and the world's unfair and it's judging you and it's isolating you and you're completely separate. How did you turn up? How did you act?
Different, because, and I remember taking note of myself, like there was a few things that I noticed. I don't watch violent movies at all. I don't like them. And I remember watching a few more consistently, because watching like men beating each other up all of a sudden made me feel more manly, more masculine, which is, again, that's just anyone that's known me for a period of time knows that's not in my DNA.
Yeah.
And I also found myself getting jealous, which is also another thing that like I can't stand it. I hate it. And it was of someone that I'm actually close with and I met through the podcast, very successful person. And they were saying something to me one day and I just had this feeling of like, and I remember thinking like, wait a second, I've always been the person that cheers on success. That's like, oh my God, how did you do that? That's incredible. Teach me your ways, like excited and genuinely happy.
You went back to the comparison of they're a real complete person and I'm incomplete.
Correct. And that made me angry.
You were trying to compensate for this demasculation that you're going through, word that we just made up.
It's a good one though.
And you were doing that by acting more manly, watching the violent movies, being jealous, having that alpha type of attitude where you hadn't had that before. But you had that awareness that you had that, which is great.
Well, that took like a year to get that though. I didn't at the time. It was probably end of 2023. And you know what? The thing that actually probably gave me the awareness was that when we actually got a bit of a beacon of hope, because at the time my backup plan was always like, oh, well, we'll adopt a little person if we can't have like if IVF doesn't work. And then adoption in Australia is basically just non-existent. It's like 3 to 6 children in South Australia get adopted every year. It basically doesn't exist. But then when we found this clinic in the Czech Republic and we went over to the Czech Republic and adopted an embryo, that when there was this, there's actually, this could happen, this could work, that was when I started noticing it within myself.
Yeah.
Before then, I'd like to say I was all enlightened and I noticed it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
It just... Because
there was a separation between you and others in the world because, as you said, life was worth nothing. It was like you're empty. What's life without a child?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then you had this opportunity to have a child and it's like, okay, now I have that under control. How am I turning up? Well, this is not how I like it. So if you think about this, you know, your thoughts were, this happens to others. I can't believe it's happening to me. How can life go on? Like, I'm feeling empty. Like, I just expected I was going to have children and procreate. It's this assumption that you grew up with, and now you're feeling emasculated, disappointed, lonely, sad, gutted, responsible, guilty. It meant that you're not a real man, you're not complete, others are complete, world's unfair. You know, you're starting to compensate with this by, you know, watching violent movies, being more manly, etc. What was the underlying assumption that was there for you? What's if you really go deep and you're like, God, you know, what did that mean about you? All of these things, you weren't complete. Life as you expected it wasn't going to be like it was going to be.
I guess I don't get what I want. That's probably what it...
Don't deserve.
Yeah, maybe it's a deserving thing. Yeah, if the thing that everyone else just gets.
It's for others.
Yeah, it's not for me. I don't want to cut this off, but and if I'm understanding this right, because the ADHD side of me is already jumping 10 steps ahead, are we getting to the narrative of this is what's making my decisions?
So if you think about, if I can offer this to you.
Of course.
If you think about the situation you talked about where, you know, you're at, say, $5 million property portfolio and you're looking at the 10, you're like, how can others do this? This is not for me. There's a barrier. There's something there. And you look at this situation, this is not for me. You know, I can't believe this. Like, I can't do this. Like, this is separated. This is so far beyond me. I can't deal with this. And so the way that you turned up in this situation was you overcompensated for that manliness. You know, you did it. So you might even look at this situation in context now of when your thoughts and feelings come up around other things that you're in conflict or you're not getting your way, and you go, okay, if I step back and I know that my thoughts and feelings are from a story box that I have of past experiences, not the billions of things that are available to me, and I'm defining myself of not being, you know, enough or not being complete and therefore excluded from the world, how am I turning up? How would I turn up in context to this conflict of I can't get the property portfolio that I want because that's for other people. That's not for me. And how are you turning up for that? Maybe you're overcompensating in that too. You're doubling down and you're putting all this effort and work into it and still not getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, because there's this underlying thing that it's not for you, it's for others. And so when you see this as the end result that you're not getting what you want and you're sitting there going, it's for others, it's not for me, you can orientate and go, okay, that's information. It's just information. I'm not going to make it mean anything. But what it means is for me in this situation is that I don't feel I'm good enough, or I don't feel that I am worthy of having all of that. And then I'm excluded from it. So I have a choice of going down that narrative of reacting to that because, we're humans. Pain is inherent. We're always going to have circumstances that are going to be painful for us. We're going to make us uncomfortable. But suffering's optional. And you get to look at this and you get to say, okay, so how am I going to deal with this situation? This is not how I planned this to be. Mm-hmm. Is life really over and incomplete for me if I do not have a child?
No, it wouldn't be. We are lucky now that we're about to. But again, he technically is an adopted little man from Europe.
So you've got a resolution to this conflict, which is great. But normally in this situation, there's a choice that goes, oh gosh, what would I really love? And so if we look at the emotion of this situation, this loss, this guilt, this sadness, this bouncing back with this alpha energy, and then look at something you love. So if you just picture for the moment something you love, that first piece of information that you could have a child, that glimmer of hope, the first scan, the fact that 13 weeks from now you're going to be holding a child, that absolute emotion of that beautiful situation. And you step into that doubt, the guilt, the it's not for me. And you've got these two emotions. If you can use that higher emotion in a situation and you can actually direct, these emotional chemical reactions and make the feeling around something positive. So, yes, there is a conflict, something's come up. What could be the best possible outcome for this? What could be a situation that you would love to have from it? It might be a situation or conflict that you have with a family member or your portfolio or whatever it is. And you go, what would be the best outcome? If I could focus on and put an emotion to the best outcome, what can I do? What can I achieve? So if you're sitting in this and you're going, the conflict is I can't have a child. Mm-hmm. This does not make me less of a man. It does not make me less of a human. I can still contribute to the world. I can still have a loving relationship. Everything is okay. It's not how I expect it to be. Everything's okay. And what happens from a neuroscience point of view, if you create that end result of what is something you really want, I want a life of love, of connection. It may not be through a child, but it may be through my relationships and the way that I can service the world. And you have that. What happens in this brain story box, this story box your brain has, is it value tags. If you can put a higher emotion on an experience and the brain doesn't know if it's a past or future experience, so you're putting up the outcome that you want, the result that you want, and you're value tagging it, which gives it a higher hierarchy when the brain goes, quick, give me a story that I'm going to, and you're like, I want connection. I want to be able to make a great contribution and, be able to bring my love to the world. And it may not be through a child, but I want to bring my love to the world. That's what I want. You're into a situation and you're having a next conflict or a next problem and your amygdala goes, okay, got 3 seconds prefrontal cortex before I'm going to activate my fight, flight, fawn or flee kind of mechanism. And your prefrontal cortex goes, I want connection. How can I turn this situation into where I have connection, where I am not reacting from a story of I'm being separate from the world's unfair?
If I've understood you right, and correct me if I haven't, I need to place acceptance on the negative side of the experience, like irrespective of the solution that we've found.
Yeah.
Because if I don't place acceptance on that negative side of the experience and turn it into something positive moving forward, then that negative story is still going to play as an undertone with my decisions in other areas moving forward. Is that right? Or have I taken it on a different path?
It's not acceptance. So what it is it's a understanding that it's just information, and it's the way that you've interpreted that information. So the information that you've taken from that situation is just information. It's not something you need to react to. It's something that's like, isn't that interesting? When this conflict came up for me, I went all alpha male to compensate for the fact that I didn't feel manly. So it's just information.
Okay.
And so you're sitting there and you're going, isn't that interesting? You know, I feel that others get everything they want, whereas I don't. So in the next situation where you're feeling conflict, you're feeling tension, because tension seeks resolution. So you're looking for a resolution and your brain's trying to help you out going, what's a resolution? Where have you come from in the past? Well, in the past, what you've done is you've gone all ho-hog. You've gone fight. You know, your fight response, you know, the alpha male response. And you sit back and you go, okay, so I'm not accepting this. Like, some of these conflicts are really significant conflicts. You don't have to accept the fact that a plane crashes and kills people. You go, okay, that's a situation, but how do I get to choose how I respond to that? Yes, it's upsetting. I don't have to accept that things that have happened in my life are all fine, and I'm going to put a positive construct over that trauma.
Okay, so this isn't about rewriting the emotion of it.
No, this is not about rewriting emotion. This is around you choosing the emotion of what you really want. So you choose the emotion and you create the reality of what you want. So what you really wanted was connection, family connection, connection to others. Now, you saw that as a child, but that had been excluded from you. And so you're like, so what do I really want? I want connection to others. I want connection and deep relationships. I want to be able to leave my mark and legacy on the world. Now, you may have thought that was through a child that you could educate, pass on information, create a beautiful environment for. If that was excluded from you, like, what do I really want? What is the real thing that you want? And so what happens here, and, you know, we're kind of getting into, I guess, a lot more deeper information, but what's happening here is that you've got an opportunity to change the narrative that your subconscious is getting. And so your subconscious is there going, here's a situation, how am I going to react to it? The way I've always reacted to it? Or am I going to see this as information, and I see these thoughts and I see these feelings come up, and I know they're not real. I know the feelings are just coming from the box of stories that I've got, where in actual fact there's so much more available. What do I really want? I really want. And so so we're just using a conflict as a way to kind of dig out the golden snitch that's hiding, which is, you know, basically that, you know, you don't feel that, you know, everything's for others, not for you. It's not for me. You're excluded. The world excludes you. It's unfair. That's an underlying belief that's running for you. So we pulled that out, and now when you have thoughts and feelings come up, you go, is that what's running for me? Is that what's going on?
And is that then what I need? Because like realistically, getting from 0 to 5 mil is way harder than getting to like 5 to 10.
Buying the first property is always harder than buying the second, third, fourth, 10th.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know, and I feel like I'm probably going to get some hate in the comments for, 5 million. But
who cares? It's just information.
Yeah. But is that basically the story that I need to then look at of the whole, like, I don't get what I want when
it's for others.
It's
not
for others. So when I'm thinking of 5 to 10, let's just call it that way, I need to, as soon as I have a moment of, I can't do this, that's not right, some kind of blocker to the actions I need to take. Are you saying like be conscious?
That's the be conscious. So this is the conscious awakening of going, wait a second, what's coming up here? What I'd offer for you is don't think of the goal as going from 5 to 10. Think of what the 10's passive income gets you. Connect to that. So what
escape velocity.
Okay, so tell me, what does that get you? When you think of a $10 million portfolio, $200,000 income a year, what does that get you and Bianca?
That gets us just complete choice over, like I said, not rich, but just comfort. something happens to the little man, we don't need to go, oh, I need to go to work, I can't be with him.
Yep.
We want to go, hey, let's go to France and teach him French for 12 months. We can just do that.
Yep.
That's what it gets.
So if you think of, rather than thinking of, I've got to get to 10 million, think of the freedom that gives you. It gives you the opportunity to respond to opportunities and challenges. You know, the little guy wants to be an equestrian rider and buy horses. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Yeah. It happens. So all you're thinking of is the opportunity that gives you, that freedom. So connect to that, create that story. See yourself in France, see yourself on the yacht, see yourself in the fast car, see yourself in, you know, being able to provide for your family and not have to live in lack. And you concentrate on that, you're not excluding, you know, it's not comparison to others. Others have got 10 million, I can't have 10 million, it's for others. You're concentrating on what you really want. Your focus creates your reality. You're value tagging with that heightened emotion, the story, the narrative that you want. And a situation will arise and you're going, okay, how am I going to respond to this? Am I going to respond to this as the little thinking person who goes, oh my gosh, I have to spend money to make money? Or are you going to respond to this going, this gives me the opportunity to get closer to what I want?
Okay. So I'm shifting the focus from going from 5 mil to 10 mil to being able to have options with the family, essentially.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So living a life of freedom.
Living a life, yep. Okay. And by doing that, that's what's going to help me shift the negative subcurrent, I'll call it, or undercurrent.
It's for others,
not for me, into I can do this. This is for me. This is for us. I deserve this, because we're shifting the focus to something that's positive. If I'm understanding you right,
shifting the focus to something that's you can put an emotional, positive, higher emotion to it.
Okay.
And so your brain in any situation is going to go, quickly, I have to come up with a story that allows me to put context and information around a situation that's happening. And one might be, it's not for me, and one might be, hey, I want freedom. And so if you put the higher emotion on that freedom, what happens, MRIs show it, you know, scientifically proven, it value tags that as the higher default orientation. It's like a positive expectation.
So when you say value tags that, we're essentially talking about that's what rewrites that as the go-to emotion.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
The go-to experience.
Okay. This is coming together now.
So if you think about, and I'll just offer this to you, when you found out that you couldn't have children, although you had that, you know, the feelings and the thoughts that came up, was there a bit of a, here we go again, others get this, I don't? Was there kind of like a, damn?
Not to begin with, it didn't feel real, but after, yes.
Yeah. So this is something that's been running for you for ages. And I'd assume that in any conflict or tension, that if you really went deep into it, it's like, not for me.
I've uncovered something similar in the past, and apparently it comes back to a false memory that I've actually asked my dad about. Yeah. It's apparently not even real. I can still see it in my head. Dad was leaving. Like, Mum and Dad got divorced when I was like 3, and Dad was taking all of the wood out of the shed. And I was angry with him because I wanted to build a pirate ship.
Right.
And I can still feel the anger. And I was like, where am I going to get wood to build a pirate ship? And it came back, and I actually confronted him about this. And he's like, that literally never happened. I didn't take anything when I left. Like, everything was left behind. Like, I took my shirts out of the wardrobe, and that was it. And it's this memory I've constructed. Who knows where it's come from?
He took your childhood dream.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think that this is something that is probably deeper within me that for some reason doesn't pop up all the time, but pops up sometimes when it comes time to do like I got to admit, I'm a pretty fortunate person. Like, I get to sit here in front of you, Jane. Like, I still remember years ago reading your articles in magazines. Oh, how cool is this lady? Like, I'm in a pretty good spot. I really don't have much to complain about. So I feel like there's almost a selfish part of me that's like, I don't have the right to even do this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's for others, not for you.
Mm.
And, you know, it's interesting. I was approached recently someone asked me to do some business coaching with him, and they knew that I did that type of work. And he wanted to, Silicon Valley business, wanted to take his business to 10x and what it's doing, very successful now. And I was saying, well, what do you think the problems are? And he's like, oh, the sales team, they're not following the script. I can't trust them. I was like, okay. And any other problems? He's like, oh, the IT team, I could do the work better than them. I'm like, so you see them as a liability, not an asset. How many hours a day are they saving you? Oh, about 10 hours a day. I was like, okay. And I was like, so it sounds like there's some trust issues here. He said, no, I've got no trust issues. I'm like, if you're going to take a business to 10x, then you're going to have to not be the smartest person in the room. You're going to have to trust a new CEO, a new COO. Like, you're going to have to build a business, and I can help you with the trust issues. I said, tell me a bit about your childhood. And he was saying, essentially, he'd been abandoned and he had constructed this story around trust, and he couldn't trust people, and it was all on him. And he's like, oh, God, I've never seen this. Now I can see this. This is incredible. Yes, okay. I'm like, I can't build you a sales team. I can't build you, the venture capital that you're going to need to do this. I can't introduce you to the Silicon Valley COOs, but I can help you with this trust thing because you need to get over this before you can build your company. And he's like, that's it. I'm all in. And I was speaking to my husband that night, and he said, oh, how's your day? And I said, I spoke to this really amazing guy, the great business. He said he's going to coach with me, but he's not. And he said, why not? I said, he's going to come up with a reason that he can't trust me. And he's going to come up with a condition to test me because that's the way that he operates. I know this is going to play out. And the next day I got his email going, look, I'm all in. I want to do the business coaching with you, but I can only work at 2 a.m. your time. I'm like, sorry, I don't do that. It's like, self-fulfilling prophecy. People, he can't trust people.
I knew she was too good to be true.
And exactly. Okay. So he's got this story going, I can't trust people. And there it is, because you can prove your beliefs, right? Because you've got history. You can prove your beliefs. So if you can see them and you can go, okay, am I turning up for my beliefs in this situation? Am I turning up that it's for others and not for me? How can I change that? Well, what do you really want to create? What's the focus creates your reality? What's the reality you want? And step into the higher emotion of that and make that a value tag when your subconscious is going, where's the story I'm going to pull from really quickly so that I can come up with an action for the next situation. Whether it's property investing, career, personal relationships. And that's, I've spent 20 years educating people on property investing. I'm like, why are some people getting it? And why are some people not? What is getting in the way? And I'm like, I'll give them more research. I'll give them, more tactics. I'll give them more information. And they're still stuffing up. I'm like, what is it? And it's them. And until I could actually shine the light and go, you know what, there's probably something running here that I can make you aware of, but it's up to you to choose in any situation how you're going to orientate towards what you want. Are you coming from a lack? I'm going to be rich because I'm poor. Or I want to create this life for my family so that I can, create the best possible life and opportunities for them.
Jane, we're going to leave links to your new podcast below, Exit the Matrix, for people that want to listen to more. Most of the time, I'm going to say 99.9% of the time when people do this, they won't be doing it on a public forum like I've just done.
Nope.
This will be a very private thing.
I do this very personally with people usually. But thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable.
Thank you. But I also wanted to ask you, before we start getting to the pointy end, what are a few books before someone's ready to talk about this? Okay, because this is a very raw thing for people to do.
Absolutely.
What's some reading material, something else that they can sort of start getting into to go, yeah, maybe this is the path I need to go down?
Look, I think that there's a real point where we are in society today where a lot of people are looking at their jobs, their families, their relationships, and they're going, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Like, I'm working 40 hours a week for 40 years to retire on 40% of my income. Is this it? And that kind of is the point where people can start going, maybe there's something more. And if you're down the science route, Mind Magic by Dr. James Doty is the latest neuroscience that's out.
That's the book you're reading now?
Doing a book club in my Your Success Club group next week.
Awesome.
And I'll put the link to that as well. But there's Dr. Joe Dispenza, like he's been doing this for years and he has the science behind it. William Whitecloud has a book called Secrets of Natural Success. Probably the easiest book of his to read, William Whitecloud's The Magician's Way. And he's my personal coach.
I've heard of that, The Magician's Way. Okay.
So I've had a coach for the last 20 years, business coach, mortgage broking coach, and he's now my personal orientation coach and has been for the last 3 years on creating what I want in life. I think, if great athletes have coaches, great people who want to live the full expression of their life have great coaches as well. And so his book has that kind of, the Hinduism, the Buddhism, the Christianity, the Sufis, you name it. Like he pulls on the traditions of the past, Robert Frisk's book, all of those kind of teachings around, well, what's the orientation that you want? And all of those teachings are now being proven in science. And so what was, woo-woo in science, the world is round, and all of the things like 100, 200, 300 years ago that were woo-woo are now scientific proof.
Yeah.
Well, we're at that stage now where all of these Eastern kind of spiritual woo stuff are being proven by the wow and by the neuroscience. And I like that because, there's no such thing as a left and right brain, another myth. But I like that because it satisfies my need to know, but also my need to let go and just accept it.
The Magician's Way, Mind Magic, Dr. Joseph Dispenza. We'll leave a few links below. But this has been an episode, Jane, that has been rather uncomfortable, to be completely honest. Probably the most uncomfortable one I've ever done. I actually think it's possibly been one of the more helpful ones I've ever done as well, as far as getting my own direction in the right headspace. I'm going to be having a few chats with Bianca after. But I really feel like this has got the power to touch a lot of people. And I know I'm not the only person that looks at the situation sometimes and goes, just why isn't it there? And to find out that realistically, if it's you, that's a horrible and wonderful thing to find out, because if it's you, it doesn't feel good. But if it's you, you've got control over it. You can dig deeper. You can do this. You can do these kinds of exercises, read these kinds of books, walk down this path. And it really is up to you to get the thing out of your way and completely change things.
Absolutely. You create your own reality. And when you realize that it's all on you and you've created the stories of your past and you get to choose to create the stories of your future, wow, what power.
Speaking of wow, Jane, arguably the most important question of the entire show.
Oh my gosh, the one I've been waiting for.
Jane Slack-Smith, what is your favourite pizza?
Well, last time you asked me, I said it was the Hot Stallion, but unfortunately it has not been made for the last 20 years. It used to be in Lachlan Street in Waterloo, and I haven't seen anyone replicate it.
Okay.
My son last night did tell me that I had made the best pizza ever, which was like a $4 half price Hawaiian, which I put cabanossi and salami on and some barbecue sauce. But our go-to is the barbecue meat lovers.
Barbecue meat lovers, okay. I actually think that would probably be, and I should make a spreadsheet on this, but probably the most chosen one is maybe not barbecue meat lovers, but meat lovers. It seems to be.
With the twist.
But it has to be the barbecue sauce.
It has to be the barbecue sauce.
Okay. And you getting this anywhere special, or this is actually at home?
Oh, no. Domino's.
Value investor.
Nothing but the best. I live on Lygon Street, Carlton, and go straight to Domino's.
Oh, my God. Jane Slack-Smith, thank you so much for coming down here and pulling apart a vulnerable but very helpful lesson for myself and hopefully others. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I know this is not for everyone. This is not about property, but actually it is.
It really is.